and girls, welcome to the land of dawn for potentially the final, the last time.
GEEKFAM have found themselves in this position before. It was up against RRQ, another king. Now will the usurpers be able to at least get a game? It's a one-step plan right now.
It's gonna be difficult. They're trying to out-sustain ONIC. That's the baseline, the base strategy they always fall back on. If we can out-sustain you and then let Marky just demolish everyone, that can work. But with the Florin, with the additional healing and the negation of the healing reduction effect that the Florin can apply now, it's gonna be very difficult. In a way, ONIC might even be able to out-sustain GEEKFAM, and especially with the bloom that it can be given to Irithel, to CW, it's going to be even more damage on the Irithel.
And it just gets really hard for the side of GEEKFAM in this position, but they're doing really well in the early game. Look at that, utilizing the 2v1 very well, using the trades, using that man advantage to create a good shove in and to force Sans away to make him miss some XP and gold.
It's definitely a lot different to what we saw from the first 3 games, but one of my concerns is after the early game passes, after it elapses, in the mid towards the late, when everyone is going to be centering around neutral objectives, these are when the 5v5 team fights begin. Who from the side of GEEKFAM will be able to shut CW down in the back line?
Technically, kind of, in the early game, the Uranus can kind of do that. A boy can still dive in the back as well, but that's where they have to be careful. They can't really walk through just all this damage coming in from ONIC and just expect to leave unscathed. And to do that, they have to make sure that Luke does not get taken out.
Uh-oh, Praise's Wrath dodged away from. Good sprint by Luke to get out of harm's way. And now, it's a big advantage that GEEKFAM have over the first turtle. Niall already pushing forward, jumping even forward with the help of the Holy Healing. A boy trying to zone Kyrie away, but he still is able to find that taunt. Keyboy getting a good stun in. And now it's GEEKFAM on that turtle. Kyrie still with a taunt, zoned away by Luke. He has that dash. Heavy spin prevents them back, and now it's going to be the retribution from Niles. He pins Kyrie down. The baptism even here, but another realm helps him for a bit. It's now Boots getting brought back by that Stampede, and ONIC are forced back for the first time in this series.
And here it is, ladies and gentlemen. A reset coming in with GEEKFAM being able to win this first neutral objective. Let's hope they can try and look for a domino effect in this early game.
Especially in the early game, the sustain is just a big problem for ONIC. But the silver lining is that they have a lot more damage later on down the line, and they have good wave clear. If they want to play that macro-heavy style, they have the Irithel, they have the Lilia. They can really clear waves out before GEEKFAM make the push, and they can allow Boots to try and be a bit more dynamic here as CW just chunks Beloyski down.
So in this matchup, right, everyone has kept talking about the supremacy of Rafaela in the gold lane, but when you compare it to a Florin, what's that matchup like?
The Florin Rafaela, I think the Florin is a bit more passive, a bit more unreliable when it comes to the healing, because you need to have targets to apply your skills to in order to heal your teammates. Later on though, it's a lot bigger of a burst of healing, and in a way, there's more playmaking potential for the Florin because of the more spammable stun compared to the Holy Baptism. So I think in this case, in this scenario, there's more chances for Keyboy to make plays, but not in the front line. Because now there's a bit more range available to him. There's no reason for him to step up so far.
So we're expecting that this gold lane still favors the Bruno.
No,
but with that being said, Marky is behind on gold here.
Yeah, I think the Irithel definitely has an advantage in this lane. And because of that Rafaela, it does even out the odds, but ONIC have the same kind of healer. You have Keyboy on this floor, and sure, not as much more consistent healing, but because you already have the winning trades on for the Irithel, all you need to do is really farm. Use your abilities to farm to get to that point. You don't need to try to outscale the Bruno. You'll do that in the mid-game anyways. Bruno needs to wait for, what, the 3rd item before he really gets online.
And this is when things get a little bit different, because both of these roamers, the ones that we've been discussing for the past few minutes, they're now going to be trying to help out for this setup in the neutral objective take. Kyrie, level 6.
Oh, he used the retreat. That means the turtle will be done for. It will be for GEEKFAM. That was also already a 2-level lead for Niall. A good decision, in my opinion, for ONIC to just retreat that orange buff. Not 100% secure, but now it only gives GEEKFAM more pressure to invade the jungle. Kyrie jumps in, gets a bit of damage, but Niall wins out on that trade, even with the help of the healing from Keyboy on this Florin. Kyrie jumping forward once again, but it should be Niall who secures it, and yes, he does. Valoisky, no mana though, and that's a dive attempt from a boy. It's all just to distract ONIC to get that turret up top, and yes, they'll be able to crack it up. Kyrie looking for an opening again in these skirmishes, but GeekFam so far have been able to actually stop these engages from happening.
Kyrie is suffering. Miracle Arashi, Kyrie's suffering. He has 2 levels below. Ooh. That was close. That was close. But back to the point. Niall is level 9. Meanwhile, Kyrie's is level 7. Is this GeekFam strategy winning, or is it just ONIC trying to just funnel everything onto the gold lane and wait for CW to come online?
I think it's an effective strategy. They get the pressure in the EXP lane and they use the early obnoxiousness of the Uranus to try and stop Kyrie, absorb damage, and by out-sustaining, pushing back ONIC, finding info, letting the rest of GeekFam make the right calls. But you can see, it Boots, knowing that this is the case, tries to make an impact. He has damage, but it's just not at that point yet. He needs a bit more items, and you have to question if he's gonna go for that utility playstyle, or seeing how desperate the situation is, maybe he'll go for a bit more damage and try and take matters into his own hands.
They still have that mid-game power spike. ONIC, Lilia, the Irithel, and I would say even the Paquito here has that mid-game power spike, and it's quite big. Meanwhile, for GeekFam, the Bruno really needs to wait for him to really get going, but so far he's doing really good in the farm department. He's gotten 2 turrets. That might actually speed up the process from that late-game power spike to a mid-game power spike for Marky as they go for it. Valoisky knocked up, almost chain CC, but is able to flicker out. Now Boots with a good flank onto Marky, splitting him up. Now it's going to be the heavy spin from Niall, secures it, pins Kyrie down, no follow-up. Marky's all the way in the back, has to use the worldie defensively as Boots gets pulled back by the Stampede, not so much through the wall. And now it's ONIC against Luke. Just trying to cut away. What happened to Boots? In the mid lane, assassinated by the Panda. Niall, and Appraiser's Wrath not dealing enough onto Luke. He's still able to escape for now, putting the stacks onto CW. That's a heavy crossbow, an aggressive one. Luke running away and getting to safety.
The amount of space that Luke has been able to afford the team, denying away this lack of damage coming in from ONIC as well. It has been immense. It has been one of the sole reasons as to how GeekFam have been able to take control of this game so far. 4,000 a gold lead, and they've had all the turtles. Perfect turtle.
Oh, Niall's going in. Wait a minute. That's a knock-up and to a heavy spin. It's a good flicker out from Keyboy, but Luke is right there. Now zone away. GeekFam look to disengage from this failed pickoff.
Man, that's just a lot of pressure right here for GeekFam, pushing the tempo as much as possible, trying to make sure that ONIC can't really have a way to recover right here. They know in the late game that even though everyone's so tanky, there is gonna be tons of damage and AoE coming from the heavy crossbow as well as the angry gloom from Sans. They want to try and end the game before that happens, but ONIC as well, there are no pushovers and they know how to defend and bring things into the late game. So far, with all the turrets taken, now it's going to be a bit more difficult for GeekFam to decide which lane they really want to bring people to, because that's where it gets confusing. We talk about how ONIC are always able to stay on curve, always able to find some gold, and in the laning phase, people are moving in a more predictable manner. Now that the laning phase is technically over, ONIC can try and do something a bit more creative.
And this is pressure now for GeekFam, but look at this.
Pressure onto Keyboy, who's now forced to use the Bloom. Able to escape for now, Niall. Still holding onto the heavy spin, now locked down by the taunt, by the knockup, but he still saves it for the Lord. No Bloom, big resource burnt out, no Baptism, an okay resource. They still are relying on that heavy spin. Oh, that damage. Look at that 2-level lead on Marky.
Well, take a look at Boots right now though. He's trying to do what Uranus does, but on the Paquito, and it seems like it's kind of working. That's the macro play that ONIC can really take advantage of, and look at Luke trying to match it, but his team at the same time now have to fight without that main frontliner.
It's a good Stampede, bringing Kyrie back. Look at Sans getting melted down, forced to use the Black Shoes very early on, and they might have to concede this here. ONIC, Kyrie looking for the opening, but Niall is still holding on to that heavy spin. Kyrie backs away, knowing there is no chance of taking this. It's just a trade in the mid lane by Boots. Meanwhile, Luke gets chunked by the Appraiser's Wrath, but it's a Uranus. It's going to be very easy for him to just walk out of there.
It's a 4,000 gold lead now for GeekFam in the 9th minute of the game. The question is, with Marky already picking up that item, a core item for his build, for the Bruno, a little bit more penetration, the Malefic Roar, and CW, I think, at Berserker Fury. How far off are they?
At this point, Marky can definitely out-damage CW.
Yes.
And it's going to be very difficult because of the crits, right, off the kit of the Bruno, which brings additional damage without using the ultimate. For Irithel, the heavy crossbow is what needs to actually be available if CW wants to try and match the damage output. So GEEKFAM are the ones now hiding back and forth instead. And with this Lord, they're trying to siege, but they do not have too much long range either.
Good knock onto a boy, forcing another realm. Kyrie now running away, but now gets pinned down. Brought back to the team as well. Goes in for the Tom, but another realm still there. Kyrie surviving somehow with the bloom, and now the Appraiser's Wrath as well. ONIC have an opening. Do they use it? Look at the damage from Marky jumping in. CW forces the Purify. Bounce! Has found an opening, brings Marky back, and that's the death that ONIC needs. 1 moment, and the gold laner is gone. Is that enough to bring this game back for ONIC?
It happened once, but now, right after that fight, Baloyski has finished the Flask of the Oasis. It will no longer be as simple, but I guess that's why I think ONIC has anticipated that, which is why you can see that Boots, instead of going for the sprint, the preferable battle spell, or going for those split push heavy maneuvers, he's going with the flicker. He's trying to make plays happen for his team, knowing that there's a limited amount, because Keyboy can't really be as volatile, as dynamic as he usually is.
And I find that so ironic because Boots was all the way at the top, ran down to the bottom, to the depths where Geek was, and was able to make that huge play onto Marky, trying to level out the field as we take a look at the items here.
Well, what's interesting for me right now is the lack of healing, man. There's not a lot of dominant ices, not a lot of necklace of durances. I think people are just prioritizing the damage items first to ensure that in a pick-off scenario, when they can capitalize on mistakes, they will have enough and hopefully take out targets before the healing becomes a factor. If that's the consideration for both these teams, ONIC has a bit of an edge because the ulti from Florin, the bloom, is global.
And now it's the waiting game. For GEEKFAM, that's what they're doing. They're waiting. For ONIC, they're constantly looking for an opening back into this game. Just one slight mistake. Maybe a used resource. No heavy spin for the next neutral objective. Some poke. The GEEKFAM are effectively neutralizing that by their discipline.
Sans has a lot of cooldown and a lot of mana regen. He has the Enchanted Talisman finished already. The damage is where it's still a bit lacking. He is building up to another item. I'm curious to see what it's gonna be though. Is it gonna be a bit more of the Ice Cream one? Actually, no, it's gonna be NOD immediately. So now healing reduction is available for ONIC.
Oh, they found Marky. Forced to flicker out. That might be the resource that they were waiting for now. No Marky with a flicker. Sans, Black Shoes. Kyrie versus Niall. Kyrie down to a quarter of his HP right now, but he does have that Appraiser's Wrath fully stacked up. Look at Boots into the back line. He's looking for a flank right now. It's a heavy spin connection to the back, but Boots does the same thing right now. It's Niall who secures the retribution, but CW is looking for a good flank. Use the heavy crossbow already. Keyboy gets gunned down or balled down there. Marky in the midst of it all though. Boots unable to dish out enough damage. Kyrie running for the hills, now ran down by Luke. Finds the top, one hit, but it's going to be disengaged by Boots. Kyrie will fall to the hands of Niall. GEEKFAM, this might be the moment to secure a game. It's Boots running away with 2 dashes. A holy baptism connects. The panda knocks him up. That's why he's called the Dragon Warrior. He does the damage and he's tanky. Who picks up the final kill there, and Sans is the final member left standing. GEEKFAM, they have done it. Through the underworld, the depths of the lower